Hello everyone and welcome back to another edition of the Roundup, where we go through the biggest pieces of news and the best fantasy advice from Fantasy Life to help you dominate your fantasy leagues. We've got a lot of news to go through, we've got a lot of players to talk about, so let's go into the best news and notes going into week 4. All right, and now it is time for the rookie report, and I'm guessing if we had a time machine and went all the way back into June or July and told ourselves that we were going to be talking more about Tank Dell right now, CJ Stroud, Puka Nacua, and Devin Achane, that we probably wouldn't believe it, but that's where we're at with these rookies, so I really do want to highlight right now CJ Stroud and Tank Dell to start. All right, I want to start off by talking about rookie quarterback CJ Stroud and rookie wide receiver Tank Dell. As we can see here on the Cisco Board Pro 75, CJ Stroud's numbers are looking pretty good through the first 3 weeks of the season, and he is already making NFL history. He is the first quarterback in NFL history to have at least 900 passing yards, 4 touchdowns, and 0 interceptions in his first 3 career games. So he is looking great to start the season. And one of his favorite options to go to, none other than Tank Dell right here. Now, Tank Dell, we never want injuries, but he did benefit from Noah Brown going down in week 1. And of course, Robert Woods, Nico Collins are all still going to be around, but he is looking like the solid second option in this passing attack. In the 2 games where he has had a full-time role, he has averaged 22.5 fantasy points. So I think this connection between Tank Dell and CJ Stroud is only going to get stronger. I want to finish off this rookie report by saying congratulations to any Sam Laporta managers out there, because you guys have got a great player on your hands, as we can see from some of the stats on fantasylife.com. Going into week 4, Sam Laporta was the 8th ranked tight end in route participation and the 4th ranked in targets per route run. And since 2011, we have had 28 instances of a tight end topping 75% route participation and 22% targets per route run, and all of those guys have averaged a tight end 4 finish and have cracked the top 12 tight ends. So again, congratulations to all the Sam Laporta managers out there. Now, of course, there have been some fantasy surprises so far this season, so we are going to go through Ian Harditz's article on fantasylife.com to talk about the discrepancy in fantasy points and preseason ADP. All right, the first fantasy surprise that we're going to touch on is QB Kirk Cousins for the Minnesota Vikings. As you can see here, he has a preseason ADP of QB 12 and right now is working as the QB 1 in fantasy land. But there are stats to back that up, and you can see why that's happening. You can look at the passing yards, the yards per attempt, the passing touchdowns. Kirk Cousins is having a great start to his season. Now, do we believe that Kirk Cousins is going to finish as the QB1 on the year? Probably not, but Kirk Cousins has worked as QB 12 in fantasy points per game in 3 consecutive seasons, so there is reason to stay optimistic for Kirk Cousins this year. The next fantasy surprise is none other than Mike Evans for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and hand up, I did not draft a ton of Mike Evans this season because I just didn't believe that Baker Mayfield was going to be able to support a high-end fantasy wide receiver, but now here we are. Mike Evans' preseason ADP was wide receiver 34, and he is currently the wide receiver 5 in fantasy football right now. You can look at some of those fantasy points over the last 3 weeks. You've got 15, 26, 14. It's all looking good for Mike Evans. Now, do I believe he's going to finish as a top 10 wide receiver? I don't, but I do think he's going to continue to outperform his preseason ADP, and I do think he's going to get that 10th consecutive 1,000-yard season. It feels like this season has been absolutely brutal for fantasy football injuries, and now we have lost Mike Williams for the season with a torn ACL. So when you look around and say, who is the next man up for this offense, you could look around and say it could be Joshua Palmer. It could be rookie wide receiver Quinton Johnston. Brandon Staley did come out this week and say that Quinton Johnston was going to get a bigger role. But even if he continues to play behind Joshua Palmer, there are opportunities for more playing time because the Chargers' primary personnel package is 3 wide receiver sets, with 62% of the snaps coming from 11 personnel. If you're looking for a player to stash, do not worry. Dwayne McFarland has a rookie wide receiver that you need to get on your bench before someone else in your league does. Let's take a look.
So let's talk a little bit about that team environment. And first of all, Kenneth Walker looks great. He is not going anywhere, so we shouldn't expect Charbonnet to suddenly overtake him for the lead job. But This is a quality offense for the Seattle Seahawks. They're converting 25% of their drives into touchdowns. That's 8th best in the NFL. And we could argue that there is upside because they're not even playing with their 2 starting tackles right now. This is an offense that we want pieces of. So let's tidy up here with Zack Charbonnet. We've got a talented profile. We've got an expanding role on an offense that we like. That means if he's available on your waiver wire, he should be on your team over names like Antonio Gibson, Kareem Hunt, Gus Edwards. I would even do it over Samaje Perine. Those names are all rostered more than Zack Charbonnet right now. If he's not available, it's a great buy low opportunity. He could have standalone running back 3 value as soon as this next data point comes in week 4. And if something does happen to Kenneth Walker, we have a potential running back 1.
Now it's time to build our Underdog Pick'em slip, and I have to remind you, if you use promo code LIFE, Underdog will match your deposit of up to $500. So make sure you go to underdogfantasy.com to go and get that done. We had a winning Pick'em slip last week, so let's see if we can do it again. All right, now that I'm logged into my Underdog Fantasy account, I want to start with this Bills-Miami Dolphins game, and I want to look at James Cook here. First of all, this is the highest total on the weekend, so I want any part of this game that I can get. I really like, though, James Cook higher than 18.5 receiving yards. Now, on fantasylife.com, with our projections, we have him projected for 29.5 receiving yards. Like I said, I think this is going to be an incredible game for fantasy, and I want any part of it that I can get. So I was going to go higher there with James Cook receiving yards. The next game I want to go to, and no, you cannot cringe because of it, but I want to look at this Denver-Chicago game. And now I know both of these teams are winless, so someone has to come out of here with a win. But I'm really looking at a bounce back game for Justin Fields. Now, if I had the option, I would pick him to score a touchdown for sure in this game. But since I don't, I really want to go higher than 58.5 rushing yards. I know that this Denver Broncos defense was run all over during that Miami Dolphins game in week 3, but I think this is a really good bounce back spot for Justin Fields. I think he's going to have a big enough game to get higher than 58.5 receiving yards. Now, the last game that I want to hit is going down to the 49ers, and I want to look at CMC over here playing the Arizona Cardinals. Now, the Arizona Cardinals are plucky. That's how I like to describe them. I still think it's obvious that the San Francisco 49ers continue their wins. They get to go to 4-0 in this game, but I want to look at Christian McCaffrey, 79.5 rushing yards. I want to take the higher here. Again, on our projections, we have him for 95.5 receiving yards, so I think this is a really solid play going up against the Arizona Cardinals. So there you have it. We have our pick'em slip right over here. James Cook higher than 18.5 receiving yards, Justin Fields higher than 58.5 rushing yards, and Christian McCaffrey higher than 79.5 rushing yards. Let's lock it in over on underdogfantasy.com. All right, everyone, thank you so much for watching the Roundup going into week 4. Make sure you take all these pieces of news, all this information from fantasylife.com, and go and dominate your fantasy leagues this weekend. Make sure you also go fantasylife.com, subscribe to the newsletter. It is in your inbox 7 days a week and 100% free to continue dominating your leagues. Thank you so much for watching, and have a great week 4.